As oil tankers sit idle in the Strait of Hormuz, Iran has just suffered the most significant military strike since the invasion of Iraq. A staggering 20% of the world's oil supply is now trapped in a war zone. While analysts scramble to predict the effects on oil prices, one country stands quietly poised to profit handsomely from the chaos. And it's not the one you might think. It's Canada. Mark Carney, Canada's Prime Minister, isn't in Ottawa preparing for a crisis. Instead, he's in New Delhi, finalizing major energy and critical mineral deals with India. Carney isn't stumbling through a geopolitical crisis. He's orchestrating a masterstroke of strategic economic chess, positioning Canada as the world's most reliable energy supplier amidst turmoil in the Middle East. Over the next few days, you'll see how this quiet pivot will redefine global energy dynamics. Let's rewind 72 hours to Saturday morning, February 28, 2026. The U.S. and Israel launched major coordinated strikes on Iran, targeting hundreds of sites, including Tehran, Isfahan, and Karg Island. Iran's retaliation was swift. Missiles struck U.S. military bases across Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. Saudi Arabia claimed its oil provinces were targeted as well. As news of the escalating conflict spread, oil prices shot up. By the time markets opened, analysts had expected a knee-jerk spike to $80 per barrel. But things worsened, and we saw prices surge to $100, with some even speculating they could hit $110, $120. The Strait of Hormuz, the 30-mile stretch through which 20% of global oil flows, had effectively become a war zone. 13 million barrels per day, alongside 5 million barrels of refined petroleum, had been put at risk. Major oil companies halted shipments through the strait, suspending, not reducing, shipments. The situation escalated quickly with Europe, Asia, and the United States scrambling to adjust. And here's the key. While these countries were grappling with the fallout, Canada's response was a carefully calculated diplomatic and economic strategy. Rather than preparing emergency plans back home, Carney was in India negotiating agreements that would shift the global energy market in Canada's favor. Carney, who has experience as the governor of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, is playing a long-term game. While other nations are fighting over oil routes, Canada is positioning itself as the trusted alternative energy supplier to the world. Canada is uniquely positioned in this crisis because it has reserves, a stable democratic government, and a history of non-aggressive trade policies. Saudi Arabia's oil infrastructure is vulnerable to missile strikes. Russia has weaponized energy supplies, and the U.S. has demonstrated that its foreign policies are volatile. But Canada has been trusted by nations like India, Japan, and South Korea to be a reliable energy partner. In February 2026, Carney finalized a uranium supply agreement with India worth $2.8 billion Canadian dollars over 10 years. Canada's energy assets, including its uranium production, are increasingly being sought by countries looking for stable energy sources outside volatile regions. Beyond uranium, Canada is negotiating LNG exports to Asia and securing partnerships for critical minerals, essential for technological industries, particularly electric vehicle manufacturing. In addition to these new partnerships, Carney is leveraging Canada's strategic minerals to help countries like India avoid dependency on China, a growing concern for many nations. Canada produces 10 of the 12 minerals NATO designates as critical, and the country has ramped up exploration by 10% in 2024. Carney's approach is to ensure that Canada is an energy and mineral powerhouse that can sell to whoever offers the best deal. Carney's strategy is not just about energy. It's about building an alternative economic architecture. Canada has already accelerated investments into Pacific and Atlantic trade corridors that bypass the United States. This diversification is proving fruitful as Canada sells to India, China, Japan, and Europe, while the U.S. remains embroiled in its own trade wars. Meanwhile, the United States is struggling with its own economic policies. particularly in light of its Supreme Court ruling on February the 20th, 2026, which struck down Trump's emergency tariffs. Despite the court's decision, Trump quickly signed a new executive order imposing tariffs on Canadian goods, threatening steel, aluminum, and automotive imports. However, Carney has a counteroffer: a reliable, diversified energy and mineral supply chain that no longer depends on the U.S. The contrast between Canada's stability and the U.S.'s erratic policies is stark. For 150 years, Canada lived in America's shadow, exporting resources at a discount. But now, Carney's team has changed the equation. Canada is positioning itself not just as an energy supplier, but as a strategic global partner. If you think the U.S. will maintain its dominance in global trade, think again. While America continues to focus on domestic production, it is allowing opportunities to slip away. Meanwhile, Canada's pivot is opening up new energy corridors and trade relationships that bypass the United States entirely. This shift is subtle, but incredibly powerful. Carney's long-term plan involves building a more resilient, diversified Canadian economy, one that no longer relies solely on the U.S. He is positioning Canada as the trusted alternative energy supplier for the world, and his efforts are already paying off. As energy security becomes the most critical issue for nations worldwide, Canada is positioning itself to become the energy backbone of the democratic world. It's not about replacing the United States, but about ensuring that no country has the power to dictate global energy markets. This strategic shift could be the most important realignment in global power since World War II. For the first time in history, Canada is no longer just America's little brother in trade and energy. It's becoming a key global player in its own right. And that's a shift that will reshape global power dynamics for years to come. Stay tuned for more updates on how these geopolitical changes unfold.